SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. Ische Stongo Gary 5 Jehodifkedos Mvskoke Radio Mabo Hedgetawedskis. Welcome to our program, weekly production of Mvskoke Media. We have a couple of segments on our show today. One being extremely seasonal, talking about a new storm shelter program that is being initiated by the tribe. They're putting that one together. And in the second segment, we'll be talking with the Secretary of Health for the tribe, the Mvskoke Creek Nation, Mr. Sean Terry. He's going to tell us about their campaign to get more Mvskoke citizens and eligible healthcare patients into some sort of health insurance program and the importance of those added fiscal revenue. And he'll take some other questions from you, health-related issues. So we've got a couple of really important things to start today. Now, first of all, we'll be hearing from Carly Hotved. She is the Director of Agriculture and Natural Resources for the Mvskoke Creek Nation. It's under her direction that the new storm shelter program is being put together. Now, we're not talking about providing storm shelters right as we speak, but as with most programs, it takes a little time to get it set up and running, and she's going to talk about what they've got in mind and when we will actually see people getting storm shelters. And she tells me there's been already a lot of interest in it from just kind of word of mouth. But first of all, let's hear from her. Carly Hotved, the Director of Agriculture and Natural Resources, Mvskoke Creek Nation. We're aware now that there is a program that offers storm shelters to citizens. Kind of a new idea that we've heard of. So where did that come from, and how, when did it get started, first of all?
Sure. The initial interest for the storm shelter program was brought up by Representative Scott Nyahola. They had approached me to ask me to vet the program and see if it would be feasible for the nation to get a storm shelter program started. I started work on this project back in November and ultimately presented a proposal to Representative Scott Nyahola, which they then submitted for legislation for approval. The original legislation requested an appropriation of $50,000. However, National Council supported doubling of that funding, which increased our programmatic funds to $100,000. That'll allow us to
join the Brew Crew. You might be our next winner.
Amount of people that will be able to serve in the first cycle of installations.
All right. I guess, can you tell me what the rationale was behind this effort?
Sure. Representative Scott and Nyahola were concerned about Mvskoke Creek citizens, and especially those in rural areas, having access to safe places to be during severe weather events, including tornadoes, specifically those individuals that are located in more rural areas that may have a harder time accessing a safe place to be.
All right. Now, we've, as a kid, I remember storm shelters being in relatives' backyards or something like that, but it never really sunk in, so to speak. But what is the situation as you look at the population? Are there a significant number of people without these kind of facilities?
Data and demographics, as far as what facilities are available, are currently not something that that I have access to, but based on anecdotal evidence and comments from tribal citizens, it appears that there is a definite need for storm shelter programs and access, especially in rural locations.
All right, now, we here in 2017 are seeing the beginning of our tornado season coming up on us. Let me kind of jump ahead. First of all, I presume word of this program spread fairly quickly, word of mouth, and what sort of interest have you heard or are you aware of at this point?
Sure. We've seen significant interest since the program was passed through legislation, and then also there was a post on social media circulated by the Office of Public Relations indicating that the program was going to be coming up very shortly. We are going to be going through a competitive bidding process, so we're not ready to be accepting applications quite at this point yet. However, we've had a lot of interest of people asking for applications, how they can get on a list, how they can find out more information, and we're super excited to see all the interest that's been generated so far.
Well, I'm going to assume that the program would have a financial cap at some point. You can only help so many people. So what kinds of things are you looking for as you get into your vetting process?
Sure. So just to kind of give a quick example of how the program will work, the program's available to any Mvskoke Creek citizen that's residing within the tribal jurisdictional boundaries. While anybody can apply, we do have a point ranking preference system. Homeowners are going to be targeted as they're the only ones that are going to be able to receive services through this program. Through the application, people who fit certain categories will receive a point preference. Those include elders of the age 65 and older, people who live in rural areas, veterans, and people with an ambulatory disability would also qualify for an above-ground shelter if their home has sufficient space for that to be installed.
Now, you mentioned above ground. I presume these are the safe room kind of shelters?
That would be correct. We wanted to provide an above-ground option in case people had difficulty going down the stairs for an in-ground shelter, or if they needed to use a wheelchair or some other kind of ambulatory device. The above ground safe room would be wide enough to accommodate a wheelchair and also be more easy to access for people with ambulatory disabilities.
The effort there is wonderful. Are you limiting the size of the safe room that you can provide? I mean, I know there are different sizes, but what are you aiming at?
Yes, we would be actually limiting the available shelter options to two, one in-ground size and one above-ground size. If I'm recalling correctly, the in-ground size is about 6 by 8, and the above-ground size is something a little bit similar to that. So by limiting the number of sizes of shelters that we're offering, we can be much more economical about how many people we're able to serve.
Now, you mentioned I guess I'm hearing that you're talking about the more familiar old-style shelter that's concrete structure that's placed in the ground, hole in the ground, and then secured that way. That's one we're really familiar with now. So that is included in the plan, and how do you make those decisions again?
Yes, the in-ground is included in the plan. The primary unit to be installed will be the in-ground, and then only people who qualify for an above-ground would be eligible for that, which would be the ambulatory disability. Mm-hmm. And with an ambulatory disability, in order to certify that, it would be as simple as a doctor's note or evidence of a handicap placard assigned to the person who would be applying.
Now, when would your program be activated to the point where you're actually constructing?
Sure. Right now we're going through the competitive bidding process. I will anticipate that to take about 2 to 3 months. Once we get towards the end of that and get a contract in place with contractors to do the installations, we'll begin starting to circulate applications. I anticipate applications to be open for approximately a 6-week period. We'll close applications, sort those through, and identify individuals who are eligible and rank those by the point preferences. And once we have that ranking, we will begin contacting the installers to get a hold of the individuals selected to begin investigation of their property to ensure that there is an adequate location to do an installation.
It sounds then like timing is an important factor. Here we are at the end of March with the tornado season just really cranking up. In 2 to 3 months, it'll, for the most part, the worst part will be over. So was that sort of thing taken into consideration when the guideline timeline was being considered?
We did consider that. We felt that it was very important to make sure that we had the program in a place where it was foundationally strong and structured to be able to continue. While that does put us on the backside of storm season, it'll actually be more efficient for us to do installs during the off season because the storm shelter contractors that we would be working with will have a lot more time and availability to focus on the programs for the nation.
They'll be under a lot less pressure, too.
That's correct.
As you get your program rolling, how many homeowners do you anticipate in being able to help?
Depending upon who would qualify for an above-ground shelter, those do run a little bit more than the in-ground shelters. We anticipate being able to provide between 20 and 40 homeowners and individuals at this time.
And I imagine you've got at least that many inquiries already?
Oh, absolutely. The social media post on Facebook generated multiple comments and likes. We've had lots of phone calls and drop-ins about people asking about the program, how they can access it, and what the timeline looks like for that. So we're super happy to be circulating this information and let everybody know about this program, and we will definitely be circulating a lot more information when the applications come out.
All right, you mentioned a priority for rural locations, which kind of makes sense. Does that means you're going to probably disappoint a lot of citizens who live in a more urban setting, such as like Sapulpa or Glenpool, something?
Right. Our rationale for that was that individuals who are living in a more urban or metro area would have better access to public facilities or neighbors' resources that have that, since they wouldn't have to travel quite as far. When you're living in a rural area, such as rural Hughes County or McIntosh County, it may become significantly more difficult to access a safe place. So we wanted to make sure that we were going to be doing the most good for the most people, and targeting rural populations was something that we considered as a part of that.
Where would the funding for this program come from again?
Funding came from an appropriation from the National Council. We're very pleased that they considered doubling the amount in the first year.
And so we can say this is all Mvskoke project?
Absolutely. This is a 100% Mvskoke Creek Nation project.
What kind of money are we talking about for the program in general and in per individual?
The program in general was appropriated $100,000. 100% of that will be allocated towards storm shelter acquisition and installations. From a per unit standpoint, the very rough numbers indicate around $2,500 to $3,000 for an in-ground installation and $4,500 to $5,500 for an above-ground installation.
If a citizen wanted to let's call it supplement the amount that you're qualifying them for, to perhaps make some changes, expand it or something like that, would those kind of deals be available?
At this point, that's not something we're considering as a part of the program. In order to remain efficient and streamlined, we'd like to really limit the options that we're offering at this time. That way we can be very streamlined as far as making the selections and doing the installations and getting our vendors paid.
So if someone was qualified for a shelter, say for 2 to 3 people, they would not be able to cut a deal with a contractor or something like that to get a bigger one?
They'd be have the opportunity to work individually with a contractor. However, funds for that would be borne by the individual in that case.
Right, so if they wanted something bigger, then they would have to pay for it.
That's correct.
All right, now once again, what is the timeline when you think that you'll see the first construction beginning?
I believe construction should be beginning late summer or early fall. I think that's a sufficient amount of time for us to go through the competitive bidding process. What that looks like is we'll be requesting qualifications of contractors who would be interested in participating. We'll go through and look at those qualifications and make sure that contractors meet the minimum standards that we're looking for, including FEMA certifications. Of those contractors, we will select and send an invitation to them to submit a proposal in accordance with the program that we're interested in. So that way we'll be making sure that we have a very qualified contractor to do the installation, and we'll be providing the most economical services available.
Now, you mentioned FEMA there, and I know that they have standards and qualifications for such structures like this. What kinds of things are they requiring?
So the FEMA qualifications review the structural soundness and ability to withstand weather of the storm shelters. So any sort of contractor that we make an agreement with will be required to provide FEMA certified storm shelter units.
So no fly-by-night unit companies need apply then?
Right. We want to make sure that we're providing quality services for our citizens.
All right. Now, I'm sure that it is met with very welcome, made very welcome, the idea, the program being started. Have there been any comments or anything that you've heard from prospective qualified applicants?
Other than a general interest, there's been some discussion about prioritization and what the point preferences look like. There are some people that had some questions about, providing services outside of our tribal jurisdictional boundaries, or if there should be a blood quantum preference. My response to that would be encourage them to have a conversation with their council representative to voice any concerns. The policies and procedures that came along and were drafted as a part of this program were approved by National Council, so those are set. Any sort of adaptation, that would be a good idea to talk to your National Council representative about.
So these people raise some really hotbed kind of questions there.
Yeah, they're definitely very interesting questions that are definitely absolutely worthy of discussion. I want to make sure that we have go through the appropriate chain of command as far as any suggested policy changes are concerned.
Okay, that does it for all the questions that I had. At this point, is there something you might want to add or go back and perhaps re-emphasize?
Sure. In anticipation of getting ready for an application, it would be a good idea to assemble any sort of documentation to show proof of home ownership. If you have an ambulatory disability or would qualify as a veteran, providing documentation to support those connotations, as well as an address to establish whether you're in a rural, suburban, or urban area.
So there is a requirement for a lot of proof then for this application.
Right. We want to make sure that we are ranking appropriately and that people are eligible for the points that they're claiming.
Okay, unless there's something else, that should do it.
I think that's it. We really look forward to getting this program off the ground, and I think it'll be a good opportunity for the nation.
Right, marvelous. Thank you so much, Carly. We appreciate your time here. Carly Hotvid, Director of Agricultural and Natural Resources for the Mvskoke Creek Nation. Now, as she said, this program will probably begin to take applicants probably towards the tail end of summer. Unfortunately, we could use them now, but it takes a little while to put it together correctly. And keep in mind, you will need some documentation when you come in, like home ownership proof, that sort of thing. And applicants must be Mvskoke Creek enrolled, live within the tribal jurisdiction, and own their home. The program is not run on a first-come, first-served basis, but instead will be point-driven, and points are given to citizens who are elders, 65-plus years of age, reside in a rural area, veterans, and citizens with any ambulatory disabilities. If you got any questions, you might want to give their office a ring. Probably Rachel Locust will be the administrative assistant to help you. 918-549-2555. All right, we're getting ready to take a short pause here, and then when we come back, we're going to have the Secretary of Health for the Mvskoke Creek Nation, Sean Terry, and Christopher Coburn. He's the Director of Marketing for them. They're going to talk about the need for Native Americans, Mvskoke Creek people, to bring their private insurance in to help offset some costs for the healthcare system. So just think in mind, you're probably going to need to bring in your health insurance materials if you've got them. But we'll take a short pause and be right back. Thank you.
Hear that? That's the sound of Hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew in beautiful downtown Okmulgee today. Joining us here in the studio now are the Mvskoke Creek Nation's Secretary of Health, Sean Terry, and Christopher Coburn, who is the Director of Marketing. Is that correct?
Marketing manager.
Okay, did I give you a promotion there?
I'll take it.
All right. And the pay raise goes with it? No, not yet. Okay. Anyway, these gentlemen have come in to talk to us about a campaign to have more of our healthcare clients bring in their insurance information, and they've got a campaign to include that more as a way to deal with some of the physical challenges our health department has. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming down. I know you, Mr. Terry, are quite busy, so thank you so much, and thank you for getting him down here, Mr. Coburn. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Now, first of all, you've got a campaign to have more of our kinfolk come in with their health insurance information, and now that will become part of the payment plan, so to speak. Why don't you give us a capsule explanation there?
Well, we do, and I guess to lay the groundwork for this, I think anyone that's ever been in a Indian health facility knows that it's severely underfunded by the federal government. We all need more resources. We need more doctors. We need more contract health dollars. And the reality is that the federal government only funds Indian Health Service at 30% of what it needs to operate. And there was a law passed several years ago where the government, in order to try to make up for that funding, required Indian Health Service hospitals and clinics to bill third-party insurance, Medicare, and Medicaid to make up that shortfall. So about half of the Creek Nation Department of Health's budget comes from Medicare and Medicaid and other forms of insurance payments.
Right, third party.
Third party, that's right. So we want to be able to expand our health care. We want to be able to keep building new facilities. We want to keep paying and expanding contract health and providing more services and hiring more doctors. So this campaign that we're calling Together We Can Do More, it's just an awareness campaign to help our patients understand just how critical it is for them to look at resources like Medicare and Medicaid and let us help them get enrolled so that we can go out, we can build that plan, and we can expand the care that we can provide for them.
Now, this is really more important these days because of your department is kind of emerging from the tunnel, so to speak, of the fiscal challenges it had, being was about $68 million in the hole, so to, if I recall correctly, because of some actions taken by the previous administration that kind of left you hanging there. And this is one part of the solution, and to kind of make up for some of that lost revenue, right?
It is. It's we are very solid right now in our day-to-day management decisions. the business of healthcare is about controlling your cost and maximizing your revenue. And so we're hyper-focused on those two things. So this is going to be just the first part of that campaign, because being in the Indian health world for 25 plus years now, a lot of our citizens, they don't quite understand when they know that the care should be free to them. Why should they have to go out and enroll in Medicare or Medicaid, or why should they give us insurance because this is supposed to be free? And the reality is that even though the federal government during those treaty negotiations said that they were going to take care of this, the reality is they're not, and we're only getting it at 30%. So just like we've done in lots of areas of our tribe, if we're going to make our healthcare great, we're going to have to do it ourselves and not set back. And if we rely on the federal government to take care of us, we're going to be waiting for hundreds of more years.
Right. I've heard the phrase that, you can't sit around waiting for the government to do it. You have to do it yourself.
That's right.
And a lot of my more activist brethren in my younger days said, this is part of the treaty rights that the government signed, and the blood of our ancestors paid for this.
That's right.
And so I said, well, it's not free because we paid for it. It's kind of part of the land deal, if you want to think of it in that term. And for folks who, outside of our communities who think, oh, well, Indians get free health care, no, it's not the case.
Right.
Now, just to keep rattling on here a little bit, I was a reporter in Washington, D.C. for about 11 years and watched the process. Sort of like sausage making,
Right.
If you like it, you don't want to see it happen.
You bet.
And to my recollection, Indian Health had never been funded to meet the need. Never once had Congress appropriated enough funds to actually meet the needs. So a lot of folks have had to take what they can get, so to speak, and sometimes, in too many cases, it's come up short. Now, that was a situation that has plagued many tribes, including our own, for decades. And the topic of contract care comes up. There's just not enough there. And this insurance payment could help alleviate some of that situation.
Well, it absolutely would. Just to give an example, we have roughly 40,000 patients in our health system. That means for contract health, if you average that out, we probably have less than $300 a patient for contract health. If one patient has a major cardiac event, that surgery could cost anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000. If that's paid for through contract health, in each citizen we have roughly $300 to take care of their care. That shows you how many people's care was taken up just by one major event. So our goal with contract health is to try to stretch those dollars out throughout the whole year, so that way if anyone does have a major event, that we have the resources that we can take care of it. And so, more importantly, for catastrophic cases like heart attacks, cancer, and those types of things, if we can get our patients onto Medicare or Medicaid or insurance or help do that, that helps protect them if something major happens.
Now, for $300, you can barely get a couple of aspirins from the doctor for that.
Absolutely.
And now, you mentioned a couple of places, Medicare, Medicaid, and most folks now have some sort of private insurance. You know, like I'm a tribal employee, and we've got Blue Cross Blue Shield, and that takes a nice little chunk out of my paycheck. This is the kind of thing we're talking about. So if you go in and they ask you for this information, it's something you've already been part of. You should be aware of, and it helps us all in the end run.
It does. And just to keep in mind, enrolling in Medicaid won't cost anyone a dime. Enrolling in Medicare is not going to cost anyone a penny. So we will never ask you for money out of your pocket when you come into the clinics. That's not what we're asking people to do. We're asking them to take advantage of these entitlement programs that the government has established, excuse me, that the government has established to help take care of them. And so the government believes that by having Medicare and Medicaid, that is part of the Indian health program. So it's so highly important, and that's what we want to educate our people on.
Now, earlier this year, I had cataract surgery,
Yes.
and I was incredibly happy to be able to plunk down several little cards there, and that took care of everything. I think I had a copay of, a few $100s, but that was manageable. But this is what we're talking about, being able to come up with those insurance cards and saying this is part of what we're going to do to pay this bill, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, in what form is your campaign taking place?
Well, we're rolling it out in several areas. One of the things that we're doing is we're rolling this out inside of our own facilities just so our employees know how critical this is. So we're educating our employee base, because the best advocates that we have is our own employees, so that every time that they talk to someone, they can help explain this. The second thing that we're doing is we're going out and we're attending community meetings and trying to educate the community on this. And Chris may talk a little bit about the community meetings that we're attending and when they're going to be.
Chris?
Yeah, thank you. This month we've been to 22 of the 25 communities across the Creek Nation jurisdiction. A few of those had quarterly meetings, so we missed, or they canceled their meeting. Feedback at each one, 20. The biggest group I think was at Mvskoke, about 40 at that community. A lot of different perspectives, and the main thing was clearing up misconceptions about how Indian healthcare is funded, how contract health works, how really the whole idea of Together We Can Do More came about because all the parts of we and together as a nation, as a family, as employees, we can solve the problem if we help people understand their part and our part and how we do it together, which is provide good health care. And so the community meetings, we wanted to get as local as we could and get feedback. We'll wrap that up this week. Thursday night we have 2 more. And we've gotten great feedback, a lot of good information. And then we've begun more of the action side of what we're doing. Our partner is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma. In fact, today from 10 to 2, they are at Creek Nation Medical Center here in Okmulgee in the boardroom. And so there'll be people there that can answer questions or help people that are interested in signing up for private insurance. They'll be there. Tomorrow they will be at Mvskoke Creek Nation Physical Rehabilitation Center, the former George Nye location on the north side of town. We'll be there from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. So people that are getting off work or have questions will be in the continuing ed room right off the front lobby. But we'll be doing a series of events, and we now have published a calendar where we'll be doing this through July 15th all across Mvskoke Creek Nation jurisdiction. So we'll be in different clinics, we'll be in different community centers. And so that'll be available, and it'll also be available on our Creek Health Facebook page as well.
Let me ask you about the kind of feedback you got during those meetings. We've seen in the news where some senators and congressmen have conducted community meetings, and kind of got their tail feathers singed a bit from some very, let's say, very excited community members about various complaints about this and that. But what kind of remarks have you heard? Have there been complaints or people understanding or a real challenge in the job you guys are trying to do?
It's kind of a potpourri, a mix of all that. We've gotten shock at the level or lack of funding, understanding how contract health works, and I usually start when I do one of these talks about polling people if they know anyone that's ever been denied for contract health. And that's a quick gripe for most people across the nation because they don't understand how they run out of money so fast or what's needed. And that's one of the pieces of confusion we clear up. Contract health is not insurance. Their native card or their CDIB is not insurance. It's a promise without a guarantee of funding, and we're scrambling to do the right thing. And so I've done about 6, so the 7th one I'll do Thursday night. And my teammates in health leadership have done the others, but we've been all over. 22 in 1 month, that's a lot of nights after work going. But for the most part, it's been very positive. We have had a few people that, brought up, like you mentioned earlier, well, we were guaranteed this a treaty or other issues like that. And yes, but the reality is the government, said they would do one thing, and then midway through, they haven't funded it completely. So we've they've changed the rules that we have to play by. And so by doing things in a smart way with insurance, with Medicaid, with all those things, really helps out.
Right. After 40 years of watching that happen, I totally agree with you. Say one thing, and then when it gets through Congress, it ain't quite the same animal. It's much smaller there. Now, I'm still curious, though, what kind of, on the feedback, do the folks who respond really understand the system, or is it more of like, we should get this for free kind of thing?
I think that our patients are all very understanding and know that the struggles that we face. Most of us that grew up around here, we used these clinics and hospitals for our own care as we were growing up. And however, when major chronic illness happens to us or a major health event, someone needs to be there to help support you. So I just want to maybe just show and give a little number of what we're talking about. When you talk about the amount of money I have to spend on every citizen, every patient in our system, I have roughly $3,100 per patient per year. That's what my budget is. Medicaid, and if you know anything about Medicaid, that's not the gold standard of care. That means that this is what the government funds a Medicaid person at. They have a spend every year of $5,700. So the amount of money that we have to take care of our patients, we're only halfway to Medicaid levels. And so my goal is that every year I'm going to try to set a goal that we get our revenue at Creek Nation Health to at least that Medicaid number. And that's where we're going to set our target to. And once we hit that target, then we'll go up to Medicare. Medicare spends roughly $11,000 a year per patient. So between education, controlling our costs, doing all of the things that we're going to do together, hopefully we're going to continue just to move that needle up every year, make healthcare better and better and better for our citizens.
Let me change the subject just slightly here. The first time I personally encountered this insurance requirement, it kind of caught me off guard. Because I was born in one of these things, and Claremore was still a red brick hospital. on top of a little hill there, and have known this system all my life. It's not like journalism's going to make you rich or anything. So we've used the system quite a bit. And when I sat down and made an appointment and checked in, I was asked for this information the first time. What? What do you need this for? I mean, don't you normally just sort of cover this kind of thing? And the clerk, I didn't ask her because she probably couldn't answer these questions. But my first reaction is, well, what do you need this for? And wait a minute, what's it going to cost me to find out? And I was, reluctant. I said, wait, well, do I tell them or do I not? And do I get in trouble if I don't? A lot of these things whip through my mind, and I'm sure this is the same situation for many people. So if we were to come to you and present this kind of feeling and reaction, and I would throw in a little resentment, I think. What do you tell people?
Well, just what I just reiterate what we just said. You're never going to have and be punished for having this information. It's not going to cost you any money out of your pocket. There's no co-pays. We don't charge you the copay of your insurance. So if you have a $10 copay, if you use your insurance card, you're not going to have that copay in our facilities. So we're never going to ask you for money. However, by allowing us to have this information, to build this information, we're going to ensure that you continue to have new facilities, that we can still recruit doctors as we need them, that we can keep nurses, that we can keep staff employed, and continuing to grow our health system.
Let me ask you a couple of questions now in that vein. I guess sort of anecdotally, when I go into a system, you chat with providers and staff people, and they share, some of the challenges they face on a daily basis. Maybe you can help us there. We know there were some reductions in staff earlier this year, and you've dealt with it as best as you can. But it leaves those clinics now, in some cases, with staff that is overwhelmed by a patient load. Like perhaps one facility has one dentist to take care of the whole load, or doctors are limited in the amount of time they can spend with a patient. Now, is that kind of situation going to be with us for a bit, or do you think there will be some relief in the future? Will you be able to add more staff?
As the answer to that all lies in our ability to do what I reiterated really at the first of our conversation: controlling our cost, maximizing our revenue. When I talk about these things, what I'm talking about is wanting to hire more staff, wanting to provide more care, trying to help our staff grow and improve their career, and know that when they come to work here that they're going to have a job for a long time, and that we're committed to them. So all of those things are the things that keep me up at night. And so we're very stable. I think that the tribe is doing a fantastic job right now of stabilizing our finances and setting a direction of where we're going to go next.
Those were the big questions that are sort of the 800-pound gorilla in the living room there. Is that the system is getting back on its feet. It wasn't knocked down completely, but it's recovering satisfactorily.
It is. I'm really excited about where we're going to be in the future. And our national council, our principal chief, couldn't be more supportive of health. All of their priorities, health is a top priority for each and every one of them. I've got to have one-on-one conversations with almost everyone in the National Council, with the chief and the second chief and all of leadership. and they're all just so supportive. And their vision is for all of our citizens to have great care, access to care, quality care. And so we're all going to be focused and working on that.
Let me ask you a couple more questions in that sort of vein. I know that you've shared information about places like Okemah and Eufaula, but for those folks who are not familiar with it, the current situation, where are we with those two healthcare facilities?
Well, we're getting close to, hopefully by November of this year, we're going to be opening up the Okemah Hospital. We're putting the finishing touches on the building right now. So by this summer, hopefully we'll be wrapping up the major construction pieces and starting to put equipment and the details into it. So we're very excited about that. We're about 18 months away from having a new facility down in Eufaula. We're to the point of pouring the slab right now. We've done all of the dirt work and getting the pad ready, and we're putting in the ground source heat pump for the building, and digging all of those wells that will go to power the building's heating and air system. It's going to be a gorgeous facility. So we're right on target. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, actually, on Eufaula. And so hopefully here in about 18 months, we'll have a new building and get our employees into a brand new facility. I don't know if you've ever been to the Eufaula Clinic, but it's badly needed.
No, I haven't, but I did do a piece on the Okemah facility, and was quite frankly shocked when I walked in there, and your predecessors weren't real happy about me wandering around with a camera and saying, well, this is what we got. But what's going to happen with that older building there in Okemah? Are you going to level it? Is it going to be rehab for something else?
I don't know. We really haven't. I don't think we've thought it through that far yet. But I'm sure that soon there will begin to have some discussion about that. But right now we're so hyper focused on getting the new one built, and how do we move one hospital from one location to another. That process in itself is a big process to accomplish. So we'll be really hyper focused on that for the next few months.
Sure, even demolition of a building ain't cheap. It doesn't
That's right.
come
That's
for
right.
free. Now, with you launching this program, now it's called, what was it called? here?
Together we can do more.
There we are, right in front of me here. And these other door openings, shall we call it?
Yes.
What else is on your agenda there for the department?
Well, we're really focused right now on the federal budget. I know that you can turn on the TV and you can listen to what the president's doing with the Affordable Care Act. It looks like that the Affordable Care Act is going to still be on the shelf for the next foreseeable future. So we've been really monitoring what's happening there. And then the next big thing for us is really going to be, what does the president's budget have in it for Indian Health Service? So there are some modest cuts that has been proposed at this time, about a $25 million cut in Indian Health Service on a few programs, which is not the end of the world, but when you're already funded at the levels we're talking about, every dime counts. So we're going to be very focused on making sure that our voice is heard on to the president in trying to fund Indian Health Service. So that's on our radar. Over at Okmulgee Memorial Hospital, we have been working diligently to get the face of the facility up, just the cleanliness. One of the things that we know we can do perfect every day when you walk in the door is to have a clean facility. So if you walk through the floors of the Okmulgee Hospital, you're going to see some bright, shiny floors that we've been really focused on maintenance and repairs and cleanliness of the facilities. So we're excited that when you walk in there, it looks like that this is a hospital that you're comfortable of being taken care of in. So we're doing that. And those are the things that we've kind of been focused on right now.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned Okmulgee Hospital here. I was in there a couple of years back for an X-ray, and I kind of shook my head when I looked around and said, I'm not sure a hospital's supposed to look like this. And was, the staff was just wonderful, very, very good and supportive, and dealing with what appeared to be some Fred Flintstone type of equipment in there, one of which broke down while I was there. But let's kind of get a picture of the facility now. I know there were talk about closing off floors in that facility or perhaps placing the healthcare administrative staff in there. Can you give me a capsule of what we got there now?
So when you look at a facility like Okmulgee Memorial Hospital, I think one of the things that you want to do is to look at what's the most appropriate place for a patient to receive care. So the first and foremost service that's used at a place like Okmulgee Memorial Hospital is the emergency room. We do about 1,400 emergency room visits a month. So that's the most widely used service of the hospital. Second of all, we have a very great geri psych program inside the hospital. So then we have our med-surg floor. That's where your lower acuity, you may come in, you may need to be in observation for a day, or you have something that we can just treat right here locally. So it's really about where is it that you need to receive the most appropriate care that you're needing. Our emergency room is operating smoothly. We get people to the right care. We have the geriatric psych unit.
The Hope Unit. The Hope Unit.
The Hope Unit.
Yes.
The Hope Unit is what it's more commonly known as. So we average an average daily census of anywhere from 6 to 12 people, depending on what day it is.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned Hope there, kind of a comic twist. You might want to be thinking, well, I hope I make it out of here today.
Yes.
Okay, now, I think one thing is important perhaps to get out to our non-native listeners in the areas. These facilities here in Okemah have been serving
the community.
The community.
Absolutely.
Non-native folks are neighbors there, and will continue to do so.
Absolutely. Okmulgee Memorial Hospital is a community hospital. We need the local community to support this hospital. So this is not a Indian-only facility. Mm-hmm. Creek Nation did. I believe that Creek Nation did the city and community of Okmulgee a huge service whenever they agreed to support this hospital. And the community, they should support this hospital. We want them here. We want our local doctors sending patients here. We want our patients coming in and utilizing our services. And by doing that, they will help us continue to to keep this hospital alive. So we do need their support in doing that.
All right. Well, we're running out of time here. Secretary Terry and Chris Coburn, we want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming down and being with us today and kind of clearing up some of the fog regarding these issues. So thank you so much. We'll keep our eye on it, and if you've got something you need to share, please let us know. We'll see if we can't find some space for you.
All right, and if anyone has Facebook, we've recently launched a Creek Health page, so simply facebook.com/Creek Health. Keep an eye on the services tab, things that we do at clinics, providers, new things going on, or events like the upcoming events for this insurance campaign. Those will all be there.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. We're going to take a very short pause here and be back with some community announcements, so stay with us here on 1240 The Brew.
One Fire Casino in Elkmulgee offers Ladies' Day every Monday with $5 match play, VIP days for seniors on Tuesdays, lunchtime match plays on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and several other great drawings and prizes throughout the weekend. Don't forget to take advantage of spinning the wheel on Sundays to win up to $5,000 cash. Be sure to check out the daily meal specials at Council Oak Cafe. There are exciting monthly giveaways with extravagant prizes. Come and play at One Fire Casino, where it really is okay to play with fire.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Who am I? Am I Native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am, and meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
All right, we have some community news here now. We're going to keep pounding this one. If you've got a student graduating this year and want them in our special graduate edition on June 1st, you need to pay attention and get your information into Jessica McBride no later than Friday, May the 12th by 5 p.m. in order to be published. And we will make no exceptions after that because we have to put together a page and then get it to the printer and that sort of thing. So it takes a while for us to do it. So here you are, Friday, May 12th by 5 p.m. Also, if you need some photography or announcements produced, April 28th is the deadline for that. You want to get a hold of folks in our graphics division. That's 732-7720. As we speak almost today, there's a college and career fair going on at the Mvskoke College in Mvskoke Nation today from 12 to 2:30 at the Student Center. You want to come take advantage of the chance to talk to over 25 vendors and several schools from the surrounding area. So folks are welcome. It's not just Natives, so it's open to the community. Give them a call, 918-549-2833. Members, that's today, 12 to 2:30. Volunteers needed April 22nd for the bot ball competition. Tulsa Expo Square in Tulsa. Give a call to Steve Goodgame, 405-579-4609. That's all we can squeeze in today. Thank you so much for listening to our program, and join us next week for more news and information on community. But oh, Mabo Hedge, it's good. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.
solve.